Hi O-level lit students. In this video, we're going to talk about Big Match 1983 by Yasmine Gooneratne. First, we can have a quick look at the writer herself. She was born in 1935 in Colombo, Ceylon. At the time, our country was called Ceylon. We were under British rule, as you know. In 1948, that is mentioned in the poem, right? Remember that. 1948, we got independence. Now, actually, writer is no more with us. She passed away last year when I think she was 88 years of age. I'm doing this video 2025 January, so she is no longer with us. She has been admired for her, let's say, novels, poetry and critical writing. She has been recognized as a writer in Australia, Europe, and I think in the USA as well. So she has brought fame to our country. This is the poem she has given us, and we find in our O-level syllabus. That's about the writer. Whenever you remember a poem, the title of the poem, remember that attached with the writer's name, right? This is Big Match 1983 by Yasmine Gooneratne. Right. Now we get to the background of this poem. This poem is based on 1983 Black July. The writer refers to that as Big Match 1983, right? Normally when we talk about the incident, we say 1983 Black July, or racial riots, or ethnic riots, or a social conflict. These are the terms, right? Some people call it a civil war, but I don't personally prefer that term. This was a riot starting in 1983. This started in that year. This incident actually was triggered by an ambush launched on the Sri Lankan army by the militants in the northern part of the country. On the 24th of July, that attack was launched by small group who had somehow managed to get their hands on some weapons, some bombs and some explosives. They had launched that attack, that ambush actually, and that killed 13 soldiers, and their bodies were brought to Borala Cemetery for burial. That was the moment this incident, let's say, erupted, right? So it's like embers or sparks under ashes, and that being ignited by this incident of 13 soldiers losing their lives. If you are interested students, you can watch, let's say, a video. There are some videos on YouTube. You can watch some of them, or if you are interested, right? But that was the moment this incident erupted in 1983, July 24th. After that, that became a kind of a series of events of destruction, killing people turning on each other, like Tamils on Sinhalese and Sinhalese on Tamils. That led to the loss of a lot of properties and lives, like being very brutal deaths, savage, horrendous, and almost like tribal. This is not something we can appreciate as human beings. It doesn't matter which group you belong to, Sinhalese or Tamils. There was no winner in this whole tragic black mark that was driven by the politicians, right? There is no doubt about that. In the poem, writer talks about that. Okay, that's the background to this incident, 1983 Black July. Now we come to the title of the poem itself, right? The writer calls this, instead of calling it Black July or racial riots in 1983, she calls this Big Match 1983. I mean, it is ironical, and she is using the word big match in a kind of a clever way, because when I say ironical, irony is the major technique in the whole poem, right? She's using that ironical tone throughout the poem. When you hear the word big match, match is a competitive event, competition between two groups of players. Just like in Colombo and some other cities, we have annual big matches, right? Those happen, they are much awaited by the students of those schools, the supporters, and that is a time for them to cheer for their teams and have a lot of fun, and let's say to bring that to take that enjoyment to the highest level possible excitement and celebrations are going on. But remember, writer, when she compares that to this tragic, horrendous incident of killing people, writer is using that in a kind of an ironical way, almost at a satirical level, like ridiculing this incident and the people responsible for this, especially the politicians or the country at the time. It doesn't matter which group they belong to either. They did not lead, they did not take their role, they did not take actions. As a result, finally, this led to unprecedented level of destruction. So that is one meaning. The other meaning of the word match is the matchstick, something used to ignite a fire, light a fire. So the writer is very cleverly using the word match with, like, let's say, nuancing, giving us two different meanings. So that's one merit we have to give the writer. She is using the word very cleverly in that manner. So in your answers, students, you have to remember that the match, the two meanings of the word match has to be highlighted in most of the questions. I think that's something you can mention in your answer, right? And the writer's, it can be attributed to the writer's merit. She is so clever in using that word that way. That's the topic itself, right? The big match comes later in certain stanzas as well, then we can talk about that. And the next thing I have to highlight when you approach the poem in a kind of a critical manner, next thing I have to highlight is the division of stanzas. The writer has used the structure of the poem, right? That's the division of stanzas. Basically, she has written the poem in freestyle. That's a style, but the most important thing here is actually division of stanzas. She has used the stanzas, division of stanzas, to give us different aspects of the incident, the whole situation. In the first stanza, she talks about the tourists and the media and the expatriates, right? In the second stanza, we find intelligentsia of the people, the intellectuals, learned, educated people. And in the third stanza, she talks about the mobs, the marauders supported by the politicians, right? They are mentioned there. And then in the next three stanzas, we find that Tamil person, or as we can imagine, or as we can guess from the details we have, he has to be from a middle class family and a middle-aged man, a family man having a wife and kids, and living in their probably an ancestral house he has inherited from his parents, probably, it's very likely. And that person is the main, let's say, the subject of those three stanzas. And he's talking to his Sinhalese friend who is helpless, just as he is helpless. Those two people are mentioned. And in the last stanza, we find different people. The Tamil militants in the northern part of the country, in the first two lines of the next stanza, in the seventh stanza, I mean. And then the writer talks about like the soldiers, blood on their khaki uniforms, those khaki uniforms, because these Tamil people attacked some policemen, isolated policemen and soldiers at the time as a kind of retaliatory attacks. And that fire was there, right? Even before this Black July, so they were targeted during the Black July and before the Black July as well. So those people, soldiers, children and neighbors, and that stout man we find in the seventh stanza, which is the Tamil person, stout man, being victimized or being attacked by the majority group. That man is very likely to be a business person, right, in Colombo. So those are the groups the writer talks about. You also have to think about them. That's why I am mentioning these groups, right? In your answers, for you to organize your answer, you have to have a clear understanding of this whole situation. That clear picture will give you a lot of confidence, right? That is why I am mentioning these things separately. And then the poet talks about that bo tree. He is being attacked under a bo tree. Bo tree represents religion, right? it could have been like, let's say, a Tamil, or let's say Tamil, most of the Tamils are Hindus, so Hindu Kovil or a Buddhist temple. Religion being helpless there. Now we get to the poem. Now I got the poem right here with me. If you have got the anthology, you can turn to page number 10, right? We have the poem starting from page number 10 and running to page number 12, the top of page number 12. I will read the poem for you and then explain it line by line. I will make it, like, let's say, very easy to understand by dividing it into sentences, right? That's the best way to understand the poem. At the end of the video, I will put the meanings of some words. I mean, not the dictionary meaning, the meaning it has in this context, right? The contextual meaning of those words. If you wish, you can have a look at them at the end of the video. Right. Let's have a look at the meaning, right? First 3 lines make up one sentence. Glimpsing the headlines in the newspapers, tourists scuttle for cover, cancel their options on rooms with views of temple and holy mountain. Right. This sentence has 2 major verbs. Glimpsing the headlines in the newspapers. They are reading the newspapers quickly, right? They are having a quick look at the headlines of the newspapers to see what is going on. Then they realize what's going on, and quickly they scuttle. Scuttling means quickly moving about, like looking for protection, safety. So they cancel their options on rooms with views of temple and holy mountain. So the writer uses the word temple and holy mountain. So temples, Hindu temples, Buddhist temples. This is a very cultural country. We are like in Sri Lanka, the people are very religious, and cultural practices also are considered to be very important. So tourists come here to, like, let's say, have a good look at the cultural practices we have. They visit religious places. When I hear the word holy mountain, what comes to my mind is the Sripada actually. It can be seen even from Colombo, I think. If you like get to a tall building, that's something you can see when if the atmosphere is clear, right? If it is not that foggy. So it could be a reference to that. And temples, normally temples could be built like on a mountain or a small hill, normally at a higher elevation, right, compared to other buildings. That's some kind of tradition we have in our country, but it doesn't matter that much. They have come for these places, to visit these places, but now they are cancelling them all and scuttling for cover. That's, they are trying to save themselves from the possible risk they might have in this turmoil, right, going on in the country. Look at the next line. That line describes how the media reported this, right? So when I refer to the media and the tourists and then the expatriates within the next several lines, you have to understand the writer is setting the tone right here. The writer is using that ironical tone, right? People are trying to save themselves. If they can do that, they just do that. They may not consider about the safety of other people in, let's say, if you take about compatriots here, so the expatriates here, they may not think about their, let's say, fellow members of the same group, right? I mean, other Tamil people, they just look for their safety and they get back to Toronto. Toronto represents these expatriates, all of them may be coming from, Toronto is in Canada, you know. It could be coming from Canada, they could be coming from Canada, they could be the people coming from the UK, maybe from Australia. So they had gone to those countries for different reasons, maybe for their future safety, different reasons, security. But now they have come, this gone away boy, he is also being looked at with a kind of, let's say, ironical viewpoint, right? That's something we can see here. And the media is also, we can say, like, sensationalizing this. That's not something good. Even today, it can be seen. Media, when they report something tragic, something, let us say, something to which we should pay very serious attention and take some action, or something which should be a serious discussion among the public to prevent it from happening. It should not be just like a scene from a movie, right? She is ironically looking at the media and the tourist actions and the expatriates actions, right? That's something you can highlight in your answers, that ironical tone she has set here in the very first stanza itself. It continues in next stanzas as well, right? In the first stanza we can see that flashpoint in paradise. You know what a flashpoint is? If something is at flashpoint, it catches fire. Like we have freezing point for water and boiling point for water, and if it is something like solid or something, right, it could be solid or liquid, if that normally if that reaches that particular temperature at which it normally catches fire, we call it flashpoint, right? So this is a paradise. Sri Lanka is a paradise, but now at the moment it is so heated. Heat represents, remember, heat means hatred, right? Hatred. Fire means hatred. Heat, fever. The writer is using these words to mean hatred. You have to include that in your answers, because writer is using this metaphorically. The metaphor heat, the metaphor fire means hatred, right? And at certain points in the poem, for example, in the third stanza we find the fire, and in the second stanza also we find that fire could mean actual fire, right? Because in those acts of violence, in that active violence that was going on in July 1983, people really actually set fire on people, set fire on buildings, set fire on vehicles. That happens. And in a situation like this, it's natural, right? People are driven by hatred, and destruction begets more destruction. Hatred begets or produces more destruction. That happened in the incident, and that went out of control, and the government did not intervene properly and at the right time to stem it, to stop it. And that comes in the next part. So we can understand that. So writer is using these terms, right? How these people reported this. This is not like they were not attacked, right? Media institutes, were not attacked by any of these groups, Sinhalese or Tamils. They were untouched, and so they were safe. They could report this, no problem. They were not affected by this incident. Racial pot boils over. It's a racial pot, different different races live here. At the time lived, and even today we can see the diversity in our country, cultural and religious, and let us say ethnic wise, we have diverse or range of people living together in harmony, peace and harmony. Now this racial pot boils over. It has heated up to that point of boiling. Now it is boiling. When the racial pot is boiling, it's not a place for you to stay or enjoy or roam around freely. That's not possible. And as a result, people are leaving the country. Media, instead of reporting the violence in a more literal manner, they are sensationalizing it. They are exaggerating, and they are reporting this like scenes from movies, surreal thing. That distance, the feeling, the real feeling people actually should get about this, and if they were to realize how destructive these acts of violence were, and they should have been, like, let's say, informed in a better manner to stop from violent acts against the other group. That didn't happen. Media is not doing its, let's say, duty by the people of the country. And the expatriates, look at his behavior. He has come here hoping to find lost roots, cultural roots, maybe his memories, nostalgic memories. Normally, if you were born and raised here for some time, what happens is, even if you leave the country, you badly want to get back to your country of origin, and see those places where you spent your childhood in, and then those memories may flood into your mind, and you may have your relatives here and your friends here, childhood friends maybe. Those nostalgic memories are always like telling you to get back here and like relive those memories. So this expatriate has come for that purpose, to find lost roots, lost lovers, even lost talents. Out among the palms, when we hear the phrase out among the palms, that means the northern part of the country. This must be a Tamil person, a Tamil expatriate. Now we talk about Tamil diaspora, right? Diaspora means Sri Lankans being like going to other countries and living there, but their origin is Sri Lanka. But now it's like reduced to talking about Tamil diaspora, right? Sri Lankan diaspora, right? We should not talk about just one ethnic group. Even today, this misunderstanding is continuing because people's thinking is not that inclusive. So, I mean, from the poem, the writer is like giving us that message. If we were like able to think with that inclusivity, including everybody in the country as citizens of the country, as small bits of our nation, we would never have promoted this, right? This conflict within the country. So no conflict should happen within a country. That is going to take the country down to an abyss. That happened for the last, let's say, 30 plus years. So in the poem, writer is talking about that. These people's reactions, how they reacted to the situation or responded to the situation, was always like, let's say, more selfish. The tourists are trying to secure their safety. That's what they are doing, scuttling, running around like in a hurry. And media, they are trying to get more and more public attention and sell more, I mean, like as many newspapers as possible. So they are like reporting it in a kind of a sensationalized way. Expatriate being so selfish, he has the means to get back to his country of, let's say, that particular Western country from where he has come. He has the means, but his fellow Tamils here, they cannot just escape the situation, right? That's why it is ironic. But this expatriate is quickly getting back to his country, thinking that that particular country from where he has come is romantic enough for his purposes. Okay, now we come to the second stanza. In the second stanza, the writer talks about the intellectuals, educated, and let's say intelligentsia of the people, how they look at this and how helpless they are and how guilty they feel about this situation. Because even though they know the root causes of this incident, they are helpless because the game is in other hands. Politicians and mobs are driving this, and intelligent people helpless to help their fellow citizens. This intelligentsia could include Tamils and Sinhalese and Muslims and members from all ethnic groups. That doesn't like refer to one particular ethnic group, you have to understand that. So all of them are helpless in the face of this unchecked violence. They are helpless. Let's go line by line. Powerless this time to shelter or to share, we strive to be objective, try to trace the match that lit this sacrificial fire, the steps by which we reach this ravaged place. Look at those 4 lines. Powerless this time to shelter or to share. These people are powerless to shelter. The Sinhalese people, they have their Tamil friends. They are helpless. They cannot shelter them. They cannot share with them anything because now the situation is so out of control. The hatred is so high. The match that lit this sacrificial fire, this fire of hatred and this literal fire is consuming everything. Hatred is so high between the two groups. Even if Sinhalese, let's say a family wanted to save their neighboring Tamil family, they can't do that. Because if they're going to do that, those mobs could threaten them with death. They may destroy their properties, they may destroy their lives. So they are at higher risk of losing whatever they had, even their lives. So they are helpless there. The only thing they could do is like to strive to be objective. That's what they could do. They strive to be, when, like, let's say Tamil people, Sinhalese people, when they are, the members of their group are killed, it's very hard to stay objective, right? Not to be biased towards your group. It's very hard. Imagine a Tamil family, they know that, okay, hundreds of Tamil people were killed by the Sinhalese people. Now can those Tamil people stay unbiased, objective, without being like, let's say, taking one side, their ethnicity? It's very hard. Strive to be objective. Being objective is very hard in a situation like this. So writer is very, rightly saying that. So, but they try to trace the match that lit this sacrificial fire. Here the word match means, the metaphor of match, that is the sacrificial fire, is the real fires, literal fires, and this hatred, right? Both are represented by this sacrificial fire. This was lit by a match. That match, according to the writer, especially 1956, Sinhala Only Act, that is the match that lit this sacrificial fire, right? That is where the fire started. In 1956, you have to know a bit of this history of the country to understand this. In this part of the poem, you find that in this stanza. I will get to that and explain. The steps by which we reach this ravaged place. Now it's a complete destruction. It's like unchecked, uncontrolled destruction going on. Horrible, people losing their lives, killing each other in the most horrible way, most brutal way. Now this is a ravaged place. The word ravaged is used twice in the poem, here in this stanza and in the last stanza also, that comes back again in the poem. So it has a kind of a powerful sound effect. Ravaged place. Intelligentsia of the people, these educated people, they are trying to stay objective and try to trace this, how this all started. Then when they think about that, these are the starting points or the onset of this. We talk of 1948, the year we got independence, and 56, that is 1956, right? I will come to that. So the writer says these 2 years, turning points in the history, 48, that is of freedom, right? And 56, that is the year of treacherous politics of language. So you can combine those. 48 was the year of freedom, and 1956 was the year of treacherous politics of language. That happened in 1956. And see the first sparks of this hate fanned into flame in 1958. Sinhala Only Act in 1956, and 1958, first bloodshed happening because of this. Right? After 2 years of Sinhala Only Act, this happened in 1958, that like sparks being fanned into flame, right? That is also driven by politics, let's say. They could have prevented this from happening at that time, but that was treacherous politics, historical notions and emotions, especially about race and religion and language connected with that race. So that's what they used to gain political power and continue to have political power. And the people, the nation became victimized because of their decisions and their cheap political strategies. And the writer says the intelligent people of the country can see these things, but still yet find no comfort in our need solution, no calm abstraction and no absolution. Even we see how this became what it is today, that means in 1983, this unprecedented level of destruction, killing, still no comfort. We can't find any comfort. So we are not in control. We can't change this. These killings cannot be stopped. And this fire consuming everything cannot be stopped. So we cannot find, there is no solution here actually. Because they could have prevented this in 1956, at least, because 1948 we got freedom. English was the official language, and then 1956, making Sinhala the only official language of administration and education. That was a huge, let's say, injustice to the Tamil people who were a part of our country, our nation. Politicians, looking instead of looking at the nation, they looked at one particular group, which was the majority group, that were the Sinhalese, and they were trying to, let's say, rouse their feelings, hysterical feelings. They are like not, let's say, practically something we can appreciate or admire or consider to be important. They are trivial, too petty to think only about one race in a country. People should always think about the whole nation when it comes to a country, because the country is made up of different ethnicities. In Sri Lanka, it is Sinhalese, the majority group, and then the Tamils, and then Muslims, Malays, Burghers. All of these people make up the country, the nation. So always priority should be given to the concept of nation, unity, not division, not dissensions, not conflicts. So that didn't happen. Politicians at the time for sure knew what they should have done, but they were more interested in gaining power, in using, let's say, parochial, narrow-minded and petty plans. Those plans or schemes, actually, they are vicious and sleazy schemes that put the country in danger, and that led to the destruction of thousands of lives, right? We lost, like, I think more than, in this incidents, after this incident, the war ended in 2009. So up to that point, we lost about, I think, more than 65,000 lives, Sinhalese and Tamils both put together. Both were Sri Lankans. That's something we did not understand. We could not, let's say, afford to understand after a certain number of deaths. People don't want to take that as Sri Lankan lives, but normally they are biased towards their group, just like the writer says. We are striving hard to stay objective. That's something they had to do when the violence was at its peak. At least now we have to understand, show that mutual understanding towards each other and work towards reconciliation. That's the only way for solidarity now in the country. In the poem, writer is showing us that. That brings us to the third stanza, which describes again how these mobs were in control, she is like, let's say, metaphorically talking about this fire and putting that the concept of match, which has two meanings, cricket match and that fire igniting match, that matchstick. And through that metaphor, she is talking about this 1983 riots and how mobs were in control. Let's have a look. The games in other hands, in any case. This is a game for whom? For the whole nation? For the Tamils and Sinhalese? No. This was a game only for those mobs who were driven by political leaders, political leadership, and those politicians were doing that intentionally. If I bring your attention back to the incident that triggered all these, let's say, acts of violence, the series of acts of violence, that was the incident of those 13 soldiers losing their lives in the northern part of the country by an ambush launched by the militants, the starting group of the LTTE, actually, including Prabhakaran. Those people, those let's say, those cadres launched that attack, and 13 soldiers were killed, and their bodies were brought to Boralla Cemetery for burial. When that happened, people started, like, let's say, attacking Tamil homes and especially the buildings, business places. There, government should have anybody can understand what the government should have done. They should have like deployed police and the army quickly to those locations where those acts of violence were likely to happen and already were happening. They could have done that and should have done that at the same time, I should say, but they didn't do that. They let that freely spread. As a result, it went out of control, and then political gains, like maybe sometimes it's not just political, it was not just political, it was, let's say, sometimes eliminating business rivals. For example, imagine a Sinhalese businessman having a Tamil rival, right, doing the same business in the same town, Colombo. So for example, the Sinhalese business person now has a chance to eliminate that business rival. In this context, he can launch an attack to that person's business place and destroy that completely. And if he wanted, he can, let's say, encourage people even to kill the whole family of the Tamil business rival. Such things had happened. I mean, this destruction was so inhuman and brutal. Now that's why it is important for us to understand, and like if something similar is to happen again, at the very first moment, we have to understand it, and setting our differences aside, punish the culprits or stop the incident from spreading. That's something we have to do now, right? I mean, that is something the writer is like, let's say, conveying through this poem. That message is conveyed. The fire's ring factory. This fire, I said that fire could be literal fire, right? Here it's literally, if you take fire, they set fire on factory and hovel both. It didn't matter at the time. The Tamil person could have been a millionaire. The Tamil family could have been living in a hovel, in a cottage, in a very poor place, in a slum-like place. For those mobs, it was the same, right? And big match fever flaring high and fast. Now, big match fever. So here, big match fever, you know, if you have fever about something, you are crazy about that thing. You are so fanatic about that thing. This is a big match fever. This is like a competition. Now, two groups are competing. It's an encounter between two groups of players in a match. I mean, the writer comparing that to this incident, right? For the mobs, it's just a game. They are trying to score dizzier scores than any at the Oval. So cricket matches, the score of a cricket match, that's nothing compared to the score of this match. What is this match? For the mobs, this is a match. They are trying to destroy as much as possible lives, any types of properties, homes, all sorts of residences, and then whatever they can lay hands on belonging to other group. That's the kind of destruction they are aiming at. That means that destruction is referred to as scores here. And that is why the writer is saying this big match fever flaring high and fast. Now this hatred is flaring high and fast. I mean, it is like at two different levels. Metaphorically, this hatred is flaring high and fast. Hatred is like at its peak, and literally these fires are spreading very fast. Literal fires, actual fires, like burning these properties and people to the ground. And the writer says this big match, in this big match where mobs are batting or mobs are performing, you may hear dizzier scores than any at the Oval. In a oval means here oval shaped, I mean basically a cricket field. In a cricketing field, you may hear of some scores, but in this killing field, this is a field for killing and destruction. So the writer is putting these two fields side by side, right? Cricketing field and the killing field, and that is something we call juxtaposition, right? She juxtaposes that to create that, let's say, effect in our mind, like in the reader's mind, that is like trivializing this. Killing people's, actually, this is not a movie. Killing people and brutally, I mean, in the most inhuman way, setting fire, I mean, burning people alive, and maybe, I don't know, maybe using sharp tools to like cut them physically, doing this damage. I mean, this is cold-blooded murder, right? In broad daylight. These perpetrators, I mean, we can understand what kind of, let's say, what has happened to the humanity. This is a crime against humanity, as you can understand. This being compared to a cricket match, I mean, that is something we can call trivializing this incident, right? By comparing that to something like a cricket match. You can watch a cricket match with a lot of entertainment, enjoyment, excitement. That's something you get when you are watching a cricket match. I mean, even if you feel sad when your team is losing, still, that is, what is that? Imagine when you see your neighbor being butchered to death, and Tamil people seeing their family members being butchered and being set on fire. This is something the writer is intentionally doing to show us the brutality of this, and this word match being cleverly used to convey this message, the let's say the brutality of the whole incident. That is the third stanza, right? When you write an answer based on that part, you can talk about the metaphor of fire, and the word match being used literally and metaphorically, right? And the comparison made by the writer, comparing this incident of killing to a cricket match, right? This match and the cricket match, and the fire, like the sacrificial fire, right, being created by that match. I will take up some, let's say, at least 2 questions from the past papers, and show you what kind of questions could be based on this poem, right? And then you can have a kind of an understanding. Okay, these could be the possible things I could write in my answer. That will be helpful. Now we come to 4th, 5th, and 6th stanzas. There is a middle-class, middle-aged Tamil person here. From his viewpoint, we have to read or understand the kind of experience civilians underwent, right? Sinhalese and Tamils, majorly Tamils here, because the speaker here is a Tamil person. He is speaking to a Sinhalese person, but whatever he has to say is not given in the poem. We find what the Tamil person has to say, because I mean that is fair, because in Colombo, that was the group that was victimized or attacked and helpless, like they had the highest risk, the most risk of losing their lives and properties and everything they loved, everything they lived for. Okay, now let's have a look. And symbols are there. You have to understand, students, there are symbols, right? For example, a tall house, books, and pictures. Such things could symbolize certain things, right? And those are like very important to be included in your answers, right? Because in poems, writers all the time use such things, symbols, to give us meaning, because poem is not like a novel, it's a short one. Those are the techniques they have to use to talk about more and more things in smallest number of words, right? That's something they do. In a tall house, dim with all books and pictures, calm hands quit the clamoring telephone. Now we get direct speech here. He's like talking, right, to the other person. It's a strange life we are leading here just now. Not a dull moment. No one can complain of boredom, that's for sure. Up all night, keeping watch. And then, as curfew ends and your brave lads dash out at dawn to start another day of fun and games and general jollity, I send Padmini and the girls to a neighbor's house. That's what the writer says. Okay. This person explaining or describing what he is undergoing. He is living in a tall house dim with all books and pictures. So we can say tall house. It could be an ancestral house, likely. Maybe the house his parents and maybe the previous generation as well had lived, and books are there. Could be a library, small library probably, and books represent knowledge, wisdom, humanity, and the whole civilization. And in a society, I mean, we preserve such things in books. Whatever is precious to build the civilization, the humanity and everything is preserved in books. Books represent such things. So he is like defending that here. He is at home, but he has sent his wife Padmini and the girls to a neighbor's house after making sure the protection or the security of his family. He is on his own in this house, waiting for the mobs to come and do their job, basically setting fire on the house and likely killing this person, not because he has done anything wrong to those people, right? To any person. This person is an innocent person. I mean, that is something highlighted in the poem, right? Even if that person is innocent, educated, and can understand the situation and know what's wrong with, what led to this situation, and has done nothing wrong to anybody, to the neighbors, and such people are valuable for a country. They could be very productive and like helping the country, could be helping the community in all sorts of ways, but still they also become victim of a situation like this, a social unrest, ethnic riot, ethnic violence. In a situation like this, they are also victims. And the writer, using different techniques, I will come to them later, and direct speech is used here. He is saying, not a dull moment, that's ironical. He quits the clamoring telephone first, right? I mean, he does not want he does not want his calm to be disturbed by this clamoring telephone. It's a disturbance. It's disrupting the peace. He's restless inside. But the house is like isolated and calm, and that is disrupted by let's say this environment, the books, library and everything, that ancestral home, that tall house. Inside that he is on his own. This phone is disrupting that peace, that calm, that tranquility. So he quits it. He does not pick up the phone, but somehow later he picks it up, and now it is his friend on the phone, and he is talking to the friend. That friend is a Sinhalese friend. He says, not a dull moment, right? You can understand what he means. Not a dull moment. He is in constant fear of like being killed by these mobs. And he says, no one can complain of boredom, and that's for sure. Up all night keeping watch. All night he has to stay up keeping watch, because these mobs normally come at night or in the evening. So they may have curfew in operation till morning. In the morning, curfew could be lifted, and again in the evening, curfew being imposed. But remember, the speaker here is saying, your brave lads, right? And as the curfew ends, that's the morning when the day breaks, when the curfew is lifted, your brave lads dash out at dawn to start another day of fun and games and general jollity. Your brave lads. Here, when he says your brave lads, he could be meaning not the members of that other person's family, other Sinhala person's family, the Sinhalese people, Sinhalese brave lads. They can move around, no problem. It's Colombo. They are not the victims. They are not being attacked. Generally, there could have been like mostly Tamil populated areas, even in Colombo, that could have been like dangerous for Sinhalese people to go in. But normally, it was the Tamil people who were the victims of these violent acts. So he is saying, your brave lads can dash out at dawn and start another day of fun and games and general jollity. He could be using these fun and games and general jollity at two different levels, probably. If if these people were the mobs, they could be these acts of fun and general jollity could be violence. And if the writer is like thinking about the majority of the people belonging to the Sinhala ethnicity, they could be just like living a normal day, just like they used to live. But this particular person has to send Padmini and the girls to a neighbor's house. Your brave lads can do that, but our kids, our children, my wife, they can't even live as normally they used to live. Even that is taken away. That is taken away by these mobs and your people, the majority group. That's how he feels. That's what he says. You can see it is saddening. He is saying this ironically. Then when he is asked about how he was doing, this is his answer. The other speakers, whatever he says, it is not given here. Then this person says, who, me? Oh, me? I'm doing fine. When he says I'm doing fine, you can understand how ironical it is. I'm doing fine. I always was a drinking man, and nowadays I'm stepping up my intake quite a bit. So he says, normally, I'm a drinking man, but these days I'm stepping up my intake quite a bit. Stepping up the intake means increasing the amount of alcohol he is taking in or drinking. Why is he doing that? He gives the reason. The general idea, don't you understand? It's very, it's easy to see the reason. The general idea being that when those torches come within 50 feet of this house, don't you see? It won't be my books that go up first but me. If they come within 50 feet of this house, they means those mobs who are basically coming or roaming around, wandering around, or we can say marauding or attacking these Tamil homes. Actually, as I know, when this actually happened in 1983, these politicians had provided these mobs, these marauders, with electoral lists, and that means voters lists. When you have the local government elections like Pradesh Sabha, urban councils and municipal council elections, and even the other elections like maybe general elections and provincial elections and presidential elections, there they have those lists of voters. There you have the name of the householder, the head of the house, and then the other members, their names, and they can easily know by looking at the list of voters whether that particular address was occupied by a Tamil family or a Sinhala family. So those lists were given to those mobs by the politicians with the political support. They were given to those people. Why? Directly, so that directly they can go to those addresses and wreak havoc, destroy the properties, and directly target those people. That had happened. So it's very likely those Tamil people had that utter fear inside them that at any moment these mobs may come in, rush in, and kill everybody, destroy everything, and then leave the place. Right? That was, very likely to happen. That's why in this stanza we see he's saying, I'm stepping up my intake quite a bit. The general idea being that when those torches come within 50 feet of this house, don't you see? Can't you see? It won't be my books that go up first, but me. I will defend whatever I have. He is trying to defend his books. That's why he is staying here. He has sent his wife and the kids to a neighbor's house, probably a Sinhalese family. So they can be safe there. But this man is here to defend his books and this ancestral home, which was probably inherited from his own parents, probably. So that is something he has, his memories. Maybe he has spent all his life there, probably. He has been living there. He says that since 1958, maybe since that time, that means the previous generation as well, most likely. So this is something precious, something he has to defend. He is going to defend it with his own life. This person, remember, has done nothing against any Sinhalese person, right? He doesn't deserve this. He is going to be killed. Why? Just because he is a member of that particular ethnic group. You have to understand how horrible this is, right? Person happening to pay the price for nothing he has done. So why he is going to be victimized like this, and how saddening it is. So as I said, these symbols, books symbolizing a lot of things. Okay, then the sixth stanza, a pause in his talk, right? He stops talking for a moment to the other person on the phone. Then steady and every bit as clear as though we are neighbors still as we had been in 58. 58 we were neighbors and friends still as though we are neighbors as we were in 1958. He's like making up his mind now, like after a while, like maybe after I don't know, breathing a sigh of relief, or after sighing, he might be saying this. Thanks, by the way, for ringing. He's like now being very polite. How can you be so polite in a situation like this when your very existence is threatened by these mobs belonging to another ethnicity, and you are going to be killed just because you are a member of a different ethnicity or ethnic group. And in a situation like this, imagine how he is like talking to this other person on the phone. Thanks, by the way, for ringing. There is nothing you can do to help us, but it's good to know some lines haven't yet been cut. It's a comfort that these lines haven't yet been cut. I mean, you can give this, I mean, remember this, at the time they had no mobile phones, right? No smartphones, no mobile phones, smart or dumb, no phones, and they had only fixed lines. That also was a rarity at the time, right? Only a very limited number of people had those phones. And so this person talking on the phone, I mean, shows us that he is probably a middle class or upper middle class, at least middle class. Normally, a lot of people, majority of the people did not have even, I mean, phone was a kind of almost like a luxury item at the time, right? 1983. So he has a phone here, and lines haven't yet been cut, those telephone lines. Normally, the power lines, these mobs, before attacking area where Tamil people lived, what they did was actually, the first thing was cutting off the power. That makes it easier for them to get away with whatever the horrible things they are supposed to do according to their agendas. They came here. Before coming here, power lines were disconnected. So the speaker is saying here, at least that is not the case. I mean, it's a comfort. That's why he says, okay, I'm not going to be attacked. Maybe tonight I'm not going to be attacked. Today I'm not going to be attacked. Probably I could live another day because lines are still working. So mobs did that to cut off the communication, and asking for help is not a possibility if the power was not there. They could not telephone anybody. So that's something they did. That's also brought into light in this stanza. And then that conversation is over. Now we come to the last stanza. That's the longest stanza, where we get a vivid picture of the violence. Violent acts are given one by one by the writer here in the last stanza, which has 16 lines, right? The longest stanza in the whole poem. Look at these pictures, right? The first two lines. Out of the Palmyra fences of Jaffna bristle 100 guns. That's what happened when in the southern part these acts of violence spread as a backlash to that, as a response to that. In the northern part of the country, where majority of the people were Tamils. They, like, whatever the possible way they had, they gathered weapons, maybe sometimes like stealing them from police stations or soldiers, probably if they were like 2 3 soldiers somewhere, they did that. So somehow the writer says they were doing this and bristle 100 guns, these militant groups being formed in the northern part, and that later being like, let's say, like being a part of like a terrorist group, big terrorist group called LTTE. At the time, this was a backlash as a response to the violent acts that were perpetrated against the Tamils. So the writer is mentioning that in the first 2 lines of this stanza, out of the Palmyra fences of Jaffna, bristle 100 guns. Bristling means like pointing them, keeping them ready. I mean, keeping them ready to be fired at any moment against the other ethnic group. That means against the Sinhalese people. Basically, could be soldiers, policemen there, them being targeted. Okay. Then the next 2 lines, shop fronts in the Peta. Shop fronts, the business places, right? Shop fronts means business places, basically, rather than households. In Colombo, a lot of Tamil businessmen were doing their business. Shop fronts in the Peta, directly, Peta comes in the poem. Landmarks of our childhood curl like old photographs in the flames. These business places have been set on fire. They are curling like old photographs, right? The flames are rising, burning these places down to the ground, and these are the landmarks of our childhood. These landmarks of our childhood. These are the memories where these are the places where we spend our childhood in. But now they are being burned to the ground, these shop fronts. That is something saddening, but like nobody can stop this from happening. Next 2 lines, right? Blood on their khaki uniforms, 3 boys lie dying, a crowd looks silently the other way. These khaki uniforms could be soldiers or policemen. At the time, as I told you earlier, the police officers were attacked if they were like somewhere in the northern part or somewhere where Tamil majority were living. They were attacked like occasionally or sporadically here and there. Maybe them being attacked and being killed sometimes, and their weapons being stolen by those people, because those who are trying to have a kind of like a militant group which could launch attacks on a larger scale, let's say. That's something they were trying to do in the northern part. So this line could refer to the army and the police, basically. Those 3 boys lie dying, a crowd looks silently the other way. So civilians, they see the violence happening right in front of their eyes. Tamil, Sinhalese, both in different parts of the country. They just look the other way. You can see when these things happen, how can you look the other way? How can you see these things to be normal? That's why we say the society becomes, let's say, the cruelty becomes a normal thing. It could be that's something you are mentally getting used to violence, and violence becoming normal, and people looking from one violent act to another violent act. That means one violent act follows another violent act, right? People see one violent act, and then when the next happens, they look at that. So violence, like begetting violence, and violence being like a normal thing in day-to-day life, and that finally making the society very evil and cruel, and cruelty becoming something like overlooked, right? You just don't care. There is nothing you can do to stop that either. Here it's something like that. These 3 boys lie dying in their khaki uniforms, but the crowd are looking the other way. And then another incident is given that happens on the Duplication Road, that's in Colombo. That's now it's called RAG Malmavata. That's in Colombo. I think that runs from Colombo 3 to 4 and maybe, yeah, Colombo 3 to 4, right? Parallel to Gold Road. You can have a look at the map and then see what that location is. Near the wheels of his smashed bicycle, at the corner of Duplication Road, a child lies dead. That child, children being victims, right? I mean, that is much more tragic than anything else. Children who know nothing, who care like nothing about race, or it doesn't matter, right? Those things have no meaning for kids. That's their childhood that every child deserves to have. But them being victims of this, I think it makes this whole thing the most tragic thing, right? Most tragical. And look at this. So child lies dead and two policemen look the other way. There are two policemen. The writer directly is referring to the policemen. Two policemen. Who are they? Earlier the civilians, they were looking the other way, and now policemen, two policemen, right? And they look the other way. Imagine, police, that is the agency that is the agency made and maintained to maintain again the let's say law and order, to keep law and order in the country, and that is the agency to, I mean, we call law enforcement, to make sure that law is being implemented, enforced. So they like arrest people, they produce people in front of in front of a court of law, and then like delivering justice to people. They do a very important role. So now they are helpless because law and order has collapsed. That's something the writer is showing us. The two policemen look the other way. What do they see? As a stout man sweating with fear falls to his knees beneath a bow tree in a shower of sticks and stones flung by his neighbor's hands. These few lines come together. So this stout man, very likely to be a businessman in Colombo, he is falling to his knees and he is being attacked very brutally. He is like kneeling down under a bow tree, and bow tree represents Buddhist values, especially the enlightenment of Lord Buddha, who was a symbol of, let's say, compassion, love, loving kindness. Now, I mean, it represents that. So even if this were a Hindu Kovil, even there a Sinhalese person could have met the same fate. If it is not in Colombo, if it were something like northern part of the country or eastern part of the country, there, I mean, this is not about like particularly talking about Sinhalese or let's say more, let's say a Buddhist temple or a Hindu Kovil. It doesn't matter. Religion as an institute has become helpless when hatred is in control, right? That's something I understand. This racial hatred, the hatred directed to another race, is like without any control, without being checked. That hatred is in control. Even the perpetrator is a victim, right? I mean, we see outwardly Sinhalese man killing a Tamil man, or the other way around, a Tamil man killing or Tamil men killing a Sinhalese man, but on both occasions, what is in control is hatred. The Tamil person or the Sinhalese person who is the perpetrator, the killer, he is also being consumed inside by the hatred, and the one who is being killed is paying with his life for nothing he has done, right? Nothing he has done personally to the other person. Just because he belongs to that particular ethnic group, he is paying the price. This is the horror of this civilized society to go on a revel of killing or rampage. This is kind of a rampage of killing and destruction, and till hatred, this fire of hatred continues, destruction continues. And then the writer is summarizing that, or let's say summing things up. She says, the joys of childhood, friendships of our youth, ravaged by pieties and politics. As I said earlier, the word ravaged is used for the second time here. In the second stanza we got that, this ravaged place. Now we find ravaged by pieties and politics. We had the joys of our childhood. That joys had no ethnicity, no ethnic identity. We had that childhood has, it's universal. Children are children. Their joys are pure joys, not tainted by hatred, not tainted by any notions of race, religion, or skin color, gender. No. Children are pure at heart. They are children. So those joys and the friendships of our youth. So the friendship has no age limit, no racial discrimination or any boundaries, like depending on any race or anything. No, they don't have any such things. But these things being affected in a situation like this, that those things being ravaged by what? Pieties and politics. So the writer earlier mentioned language and race. Now it's pieties and politics. Tamils, mostly Hindus. Sinhalese, mostly Buddhists. Sinhalese means the ethnicity and the language is also Sinhalese. Tamils means the ethnicity and the language is also Tamil. And those things being used by politics, right? Parochial politicians, parochial views, parochial mindset, and narrow-minded politics, cheap politics, sleazy politics, and pieties being used to discriminate and to perpetrate, let's say, let's say students, perpetrate, let's say, inhuman, or otherwise you can put it like to commit crimes against humanity. When you see that children being victims, there, for adults, notions, ideologies, differences, children, they cannot be held responsible. They are innocent, 100%. So in whatever the situation, in whatever nation, in whatever condition, if children are going to be victimized, there is something we have missed in whatever operations we are doing to kill each other. So here, writer says, this has been caused by pieties and politics. Whatever the devotion you have, whatever the loyalty you have to whatever side, whatever ethnic group, whatever religion, those things have become reasons for this destruction. That is something that should never happen. And politics, being sleazy and treacherous and interested only in gaining power and being so corrupted in exercising political power, these things are the reasons behind this destruction, as the writer says. Then screaming across our screens, our iron screens, we have put screens. We don't let certain things, let's say, come into prominence. Intentionally, we are holding them back. Because, for example, you see a Tamil person being killed brutally, but you have a screen. What is that? You think, okay, that's not one of us. That's one of them. So they have killed some of us. So he deserves that. So, but personally, he is innocent. So we have those screens, religious screens. So it's like color glasses, right? Like wearing those shades. Like politically, we don't see. We are blind to the brutality because of that screen. Screen could be like because of your race, you should have the racial screen, religious screen, which prevents you from seeing the brutality, the how inhuman it is, and the how criminal it is, and you just disregard that because of those screens. Now it has come to that breaking point. No longer we cannot disregard these horrendous acts because of, I mean, just thinking very parochially, narrowly, that it's not one of us. No, it has come to its, let's say, the limit. We can no longer do that. That's why the writer says, Sri Lanka is personified. Sri Lanka is burning alive. She is burning alive. She is screaming across our screens. We have turned deaf ears to her screams before. In 1958, we had done that. Now, we can no longer do that. She is screaming so loud that it comes penetrating our screens. Now it is heard, her agony, Sri Lanka's agony. Writer is like very, let's say, vividly giving this. At last exposed, her agony is exposed. Her agony is the nation's agony, Sri Lanka's agony, not like one side's agony, not Sinhalese agony, not Tamil's agony. It's Sri Lanka's agony, it's nation's agony. It is being exposed now. Sri Lanka burns alive. Sri Lanka burns alive. It's not that just properties being burned and people being burned alive. Sri Lanka burns alive. That's what the writer is saying. That's why this poem is so, let's say, brilliant in my point of view. Through the poem, she is not like directing any hatred towards one particular ethnic group or anything of the sort. She is talking about what's happening to the whole nation as a result of this irrational, meaningless hatred directed towards each other in this match, which is never a match for fun, in this competition to cause the most destruction to the other group. We are both losers. Tamils lose, Sinhalese lose, Sri Lankans lose. There is no winner. In a cricket match, one team loses, the other team emerges as the winners. Here, both the parties are losers. The whole nation is the victim. It consists not only Sinhalese and Tamils. We have Muslims and Burghers and Malays. All of those are victims of this. Our progression as a nation is compromised by this, and we are still, I think, probably have been unable to understand this properly and work towards, let's say, creating a developed country. These things have been like holding us back. In the poem, writer is bringing these things into our attention very cleverly. I mean, we have to attribute like certain, let's say, level of merit to her when it comes to the techniques. Let's have a quick look at the techniques here. The major technique is irony. When she talks about, for example, let us say in the first stanza, she looks at these different parties like tourists and media and expatriates. Is ironical. When she is talking about this fire and the big match, basically, big match, when she compares this to a cricketing event and this field of like murder, killing to a cricket field, there is ironical tone there. And fire is a metaphor, literal fire, that conflagration, like a conflict and fire, both, I mean, conflagration has both those meanings. So you can look up that word in the dictionary, and you may need certain words to understand this better. I'll put some of the words at the end of the video so that you can easily understand that. And irony and metaphor, those are the major techniques. Later also, she uses this ironical tone throughout the poem. Like, for example, in the fourth stanza, she says, that speaker says that middle-aged, middle-class Tamil person, no one can complain of boredom, right? Not a dull moment, Right? He is in constant fear. How can life be bored? It's like a cynical kind of irony. It's a kind of like cynical means, the sufferings are there, but people looking at it with a kind of a humor, then it becomes kind of cynical. Especially maybe people crying or people being sad about certain things. And some people here, it is like he is not showing any emotion towards his own tragic situation, and his family is in constant danger of being killed, murdered in the most brutal way. But still, he's saying, not a dull moment. No one can complain of boredom. Those things you can easily understand how ironical they are, and how, let's say, sarcastic, right? Sarcastic and almost satirical. And I am doing fine. In the fifth stanza, you can find who, me, oh, I'm doing fine. It's ironical. He is meaning exactly opposite of that. How could he be fine when he is threatened with being killed? And you can understand certain, and then pictures, imagery in the seventh stanza, you can see those images being created by the writer, giving us vivid pictures. Those are the basic techniques used by the writer. If you like, as the video is getting very long, I'm going to wrap things up here. I will like pay quick attention to something, because you are basically doing all this for your exam rather than, I don't know. The number one thing is actually understanding this properly and seeing the reality, and developing that critical mentality, critical thinking. That's the major purpose of doing all this. But as students, I know you are a lot interested in writing, organizing a good answer. So I have some like 2 questions just to have a quick look. In 2022, we got a question that goes like, a sense of social conflict presented in this poem. So we have discussed that how a sense of social conflict. So this is technically a social conflict. Society, this comes in under the category of society as well. Conflict would be purely mental conflict, like in that poem Breakfast, for example. Under theme conflict, you have got that. That's not a physical conflict, but war is kind, and the terrorist is watching, their violent acts are there. But here, social conflict, this is not like one army fighting against another army. This is a social conflict in the society, one group of people turning against another group of people, right? Like that differentiation is ethnicity. Sinhalese group like killing Tamil people in Colombo, and as a backlash or as a in response, almost like in a reaction, Tamil people killing Sinhalese people in other areas of the country, and military groups being formed in northern and eastern part of the country. This is presented, that's basically what it is about. So in this, if you are going to answer this question, you can very easily substantiate your answers. You can easily prove your answers, picking up different parts from the poem. And remember, if you can remember the poem, if you can put some quotes from the poem, that improves your answer always. While you are discussing what is talked about in the poem by the writer, you can put some quotes to support your answers, to prove your points. So read the poem again and again, and if you understand the background, that will help you naturally remember them, because you know what happened in 1983, because this is a real incident that something actually happened in our history, recent history. So that is something you have to pay attention to. Here the social conflict is how it is presented. The question is like how a sense of social conflict is presented. The way it is presented is important, right? In your answer, you have to always focus the most important part of the question. So the question goes like, discuss how a sense of social conflict is presented. How it is presented in this by the writer. As I said earlier, the writer is not presenting it in a kind of a discriminatory way, like let's say directing hatred to one group, right? After reading the poem, what we see is, if something like this happens, if hatred, I mean, philosophically speaking, hatred is in control, hatred begets more and more hatred, and no, the majority of the people cannot control this even if they wanted to, right? They wanted to protect their Tamil friends. Tamil friends wanted to be protected, and Tamil friends wanted to protect their Sinhalese friends, but they were helpless, because if they were to do that, they also were threatened by their own people. That was kind of a tragic situation. How much suffering this created in the hearts of everybody. Physical suffering and mental suffering, both. Some people suffering from both mental and physical, and some mentally. For example, Sinhalese people wanting to protect his or her Tamil friend, but still not being able to do that, and that creates a lot of suffering. Imagine Tamil kids and Sinhalese kids who have lived together for years and now being separated, and one group of people happening to hide in somebody else's home, and the amount of suffering and created by this situation. Those are the things, and the amount of violence, right? That is also something. The amount of violence that was created, and the politicians, how they, society becoming so degraded, so degenerated in terms of morals and values, and not valuing human life, basically, right? When you don't value life, I don't think you can value anything else. I mean, as a human society, member of human society, we have to value human life. It doesn't matter to which group or depending on their skin color or ethnicity or religion that belongs to. Whatever their life, if it is human life, it has same equal value. When that is being violated, situation is like this. So you have to always focus on that. You can, to address this question, everything we talked about today is relevant. In 2023, we got another question. Big Match 1983 is a subtle depiction of violence and corruption in an evil society. Subtle depiction of violence and corruption in an evil society. Right? You have discussed with reference to the poem. That's the question you got in 2023. So that means evil society. You can see this, how evil society has become because of this situation, right? When killings are going on, when they are normal things, society is naturally evil, and the subtle depiction of that, violence and corruption. In that evil society, we can see corruption, corrupted politicians, and religion being corrupted and not being practiced, religion being helpless in that sense, and people being corrupted and being so unfeeling, just to look the other way, even when people are dying right in front of their eyes, such things. And in the question, you get violence and corruption both. So violence is given, the writer has given us a lot of violence in vivid pictures here, and corruption, politically being only interested in gaining power, and people having those screens, right, and being unfeeling, and especially mobs being in control, and that being politically driven. And you can again pick up, choose parts from the poem and describe that, and as a result, again, you can mention some suffering caused by this violence and this, let's say, corruption being a leading cause for more and more, for letting the violence continue almost without any, without that being checked at all. So that has to be checked and controlled. Government did not do that. So we have to wrap things up for the day. I think about this now, as we have like talked a lot about this. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comment section so that I can give you some answers. Let's say if I missed anything in this, could have been the case. If such questions, if you have some questions, some doubts, you can comment, put them in the comment section, as I can address them as much as possible. And if you want me to do any more videos connected with O-level literature, give me a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will do more videos to help you students get more marks for your O-level literature. And it could be anything. I would like, let's say, a novel could be a long one, but anything else, if it's going to be a novel, it may take, I think, several videos. But poems and the prose and the dramas, probably. Thank you very much for watching, and do not forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel so that I may make more videos like this. See you in the next video.